Hi there again, this is Professor Innes, and you are now on the module dealing with epistemology. And I'm just going to go right to this particular module to check which number, and the number is number 6, epistemology, the problems of epistemology. And in this module as well, you're going to be starting with Descartes' irrationalism. So we'll start with what is epistemology and what are the problems of epistemology for us philosophers. So we're talking about the theory of knowledge. Epistemology is it's the study of knowledge, the basis of knowledge claims, how we come about these knowledge claims, and if these knowledge claims are in fact in any way reliable. So the question would be, is knowledge reliable, and if it is, how do we come about that knowledge? Of course, how do we come about that knowledge would be still a question, even if we're not certain that this knowledge was reliable. So either way, we've got that problem. What is knowledge and how do we come about it? So we have the basic problem for us philosophers, and the basic problem is we have this thing called a mind, and this mind does all the thinking. It's our consciousness. It's that which has the knowledge claims. It has the claim that that thing is yellow and that thing over there is large. So it makes these knowledge claims all the time. And from that we say, okay, the problem for us philosophers is that this mind is not in contact with that thing which it claims to know. The mind gets its raw data, as you may call it, from the 5 senses. So if I was to touch this desk, I would try to make the knowledge claim that this desk is either rough or it's smooth or intermediate or whatever. But it's not my fingers that are doing the thinking. My fingers do the touching, and through the nervous system it channels that information to the mind, and then the mind does the thinking. But that mind is not touching the desk. So that is the problem. So we apply this to all the 5 senses. Is seeing, touching, taste. What's to say that thing you're tasting for lunch, for example, or dinner, is in fact tasty? It could be quite horrible to somebody else. So we think to ourselves, right, okay, where do we get this knowledge claim here that that's a nice food or not nice food? How do we get the knowledge claim that this is a rough table or a smooth table or whatever? So it's endless. The examples are endless, but nonetheless it's problematic. Is this certain knowledge? Can I claim this to be certain knowledge just because I think it's certain and I'm saying it is so and I believe it to be so? It is not to say that this is certain knowledge. It could be just an opinion that this is a smooth desk, an opinion based upon my experience of all hitherto desks has been rough, having rough surfaces. So therefore, in comparison, this is a smooth surface. So in that sense, it's more of an opinion than a knowledge claim. It's more of I think it to be this, rather than that, so that I think this is a smooth desk rather than it being a rough desk, according to me. So therefore it's my personal opinion in that sense. That can't be knowledge, that's just a belief. I believe this desk to be smooth or rough or whatever. So what we need to do thereafter is to try and find a method whereby we can transfer that belief into something we call knowledge. And that's when you're going to have Descartes, Locke, and Berkeley, the 3 philosophers in this course dealing with epistemology, putting forward theories which they hope to solve the problem, therefore provide us with evidence that we can acquire certain knowledge. Of course, I emphasize the word hope in the sense that you're going to be sadly disappointed if you think that these 3 philosophers are going to be successful. That's if we can call them philosophers at the moment. They might be just theorists, and they've made fools of themselves by putting forward a rather pompous view that they can actually solve this problem, whereas everybody else has failed. So in that sense, they're putting forward these attempts. You're going to look at them as philosophers and see if they work in regards to providing a theory which shows how we come about the certainty of knowledge. Right, so that's our introduction. That's what epistemology is about. So I think I put it across clearly there. And again, it's a complex argument. And it's complex to understand, and it might be the case this is the first time you've approached this particular discussion. It might not be. Either way, it's still complex. And do we ask these questions in the big wide world? I think so. In the courts, when somebody says that somebody committed something, then they have to prove it, and that might be very difficult to do. In the sense that there's evidence to say that this person did this or that. One has to provide the evidence, and even then, it's not certain this person has done it. They've done it, committed this act, and we're reasonably sure they have committed this act, or the amount of doubt that they committed the act is limited, is it? But still, there's no certainty. So this is quite relevant for the big wide world. When people talk to you as well, are they telling the truth? Do they know what they're talking about? They were there when it happened, whatever it happened, but were their senses working properly at the time? Was their mind working properly to make sense of the raw data from the five senses? So we ask all of these questions in epistemology as philosophers, and again, it is relevant for the big wide world in which we live. So the first one you're going to deal with, or rather the first theory which attempts to solve this problem, is René Descartes' rationalism. What he says is that sense experience is so problematic, so unreliable, that we have to reject that sense experience. My example, always put forward in classes, is that we look up into the sky, and the sun is 3 inches across. Now, we somehow know that the sun is not 3 inches across. I don't know when we came to this understanding, as individuals. Was it when you were 3 years old, 4 years old? Did you think it was just some disk in the sky? Or was it something instead which was innate? You, as soon as you saw the thing in the sky, you knew it to be something larger than it appears. Is this innate? According to the rationalist, this is an innate ability for us to differentiate between things far away and near up, and have some reasonable idea how big they are. Therefore, with Descartes, when we are looking at things, we use mathematics and physics to gauge what they are, how big they are, how small they are, what they are. And our sense experience cannot be relied upon, and never is. In fact, Descartes goes as far as to say we should always go back to the laboratory, shut the doors, pull the blinds down, and do our research in excluding all this sense experience, because it is so unreliable. So therefore, if we want to know how big the sun is, we use mathematics, physics, and all that type of stuff to come up with an understanding how big is the sun. Likewise with everything else we wish to understand, we use mathematics. Sense experience is unreliable and needs to be rejected. And according to Descartes, we do that on a daily basis anyway. We just do not rely upon our sense experience. Otherwise, every time that car drives away down the road, we will be thinking it's getting smaller. But according to the rationalists, we use our mathematics to tell ourselves it's not getting smaller, it just appears to be getting smaller. That's all. Now, again, for the rationalist, this is something innate. This is something which we are born with, the capability of doing this, and therefore we're always in a position of trying to make sense of sense data and coming up with an understanding, but only through abstract thought do we come up with that understanding. We simply do not rely upon this sense experience. It is rejected. So that is Descartes for us. So within your journal entry, please, could you write down 3 things which the rationalists would consider to be a good example of how we use mathematics and physics to make sense of the world, which, if we didn't use mathematics and physics, would be mystifying to us. So the example I put forward was the car driving away. It is by the use of mathematics we understand the car is not getting smaller, it is appearing to get smaller. That is our use of physics. So in that way, well, is it physics or trigonometry? Whichever one. We don't need to know exactly which one it is, one of the two. So in that way, it's mathematics which is allowing us to understand what's happening. So that would be one example. And again, in this course, as you realise, you do not have to know about mathematics, physics, and the arts and everything here to do the philosophy with it. In fact, sometimes it gets in the way. So that's one example. One example we have. And so think of 3 examples and have a reasonable discussion of them where the rationalist would say we're using mathematics to understand the external world, make sense of the external world. Again, this is the entry you write after I have written a reply to your reply. So in that sense, your initial entry is your general discussion, what you thought about epistemology, what you thought about Descartes. Then I reply to you, and then you write this particular reply. So this is the 3rd entry, your 2nd entry, and the 3rd entry overall within the journal. So don't write this initially, please. Don't reply to this initially in your journal. Thank you. Okay, right. So again, let me know if you need anything, if you've got any questions. It looks like everything's going straightforward and everybody's understanding. Do let me know as well if my comments are helpful. They do take time, and do please read these comments because I do take time to read your work and write something pertinent to what you said. Could be just a sentence or 2, but it's still something which is relevant. Okay, right, so speak to you later and enjoy the module. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.